Hello fashion lovers, I'm Sofi. Welcome back to my studio. I'm going to demonstrate the A-line skirt for you today. So the A-line skirt looks like this, where we omit the darts at the waistline, slash the hem and open it to get that flared look. In order for us to draft the skirt, we need this basic skirt foundation. In case you don't have one, please refer to my basic skirt foundation video. So we place a front skirt at the edge of the paper and we copy the outline of the shape. Don't forget the dart points and connect the dart points to the notches. The back skirt also placed against one of the lines, where you carefully copy the corners and notches. Grab the tips of the darts and draft your slash line. Cut the skirts off of the paper. Let's cut the darts out. Now slash the slash lines. If we don't cut the darts out, the bottom of the skirt is not going to open. I placed my pattern on a brown paper so you can see the opening clearly. So I'm going to adjust my pattern center front line right at the edge of the paper. And then close the darts. You see, when you close the dart, the bottom opens into a flare. Straighten up the paper nicely so it doesn't pucker. And let's close the second dart. As you can see, keeps on opening, so that creates the flare because the sweep of my hemline increases in its measurement. The background of the paper doesn't have to be a brown paper. You can put it on a dotted paper or manila paper, it's up to you. Again, I'm just doing this for you to be able to see clearly how that opens up. Now, all the steps that I've done for the front precisely is done for the back, step by step. When we slash and spread, usually the place where the dart were or the place where they opened up sometimes gets broken. That's why, before I go any further, I am going to double check to see if my waistline at the darts is broken. Right now my waistline is looking pretty okay, so check yours. And then the hemline is completely broken, so I'm going to keep the tail towards the center front and I'm going to go back and forth until I catch all the tips of these papers and create smooth hemline. So again, the back is done exactly the same way, no difference. Now what I need to do is I need to add my seam allowances. The seam allowances are 1/2 inch at the waistline, at the side seam, my hemline is going to be 3/4 of an inch. Usually we don't want to create bigger than that amount, because when we fold the hemline up to be stitched under the skirt, it will ruffle up. Sometimes even 3/4 of an inch is too much, depending from the type of a fabric that you're using. Also, the reason I'm doing that today is because I would like to show you how to shape up the hem allowance at the side seam. So after I do this, then I'm going to smooth out my lines so they're nice and smooth, and I want you to cut the hemline. Okay, so here's what I do. I fold the hemline like this. You see, my intention is to eliminate some of the excess fabric that will be here. At the end of the hemline here, you see I draft that line and cut. So here I get like a slight shaping. That means this corner is eliminated a little bit, so when we fold it to be stitched, the hemline doesn't get too much ripples here. And then you cut. Of course, we should not forget to smooth out the side seam lines or the waistline broken lines. You see, when we just leave it like that, sometimes the cut is not nice and smooth. And then you cut it. Again, the same exact steps should be referring to the back. Well, I have mentioned that you are going to do the same exact steps for the back also. These patterns are very much looking like each other besides the center back. At the center back, I have added 1/2 inch seam allowance because my zipper is going to be at the back. Obviously, we understand. If there is no seam allowance, there is no zipper. So I added 1/2 inch seam allowance at the back and then notched 7 inches down from the waistline to show the zipper stop. After I did that, in order to complete my patterns, I drafted my grain line straight, parallel to the center back and parallel to the center front, about 1 inch away from them. And I wrote my labels on the grain line. The back one says back A-line skirt, a size 8, and we're going to cut 2 of this. Meanwhile, here at the front, this is my front A-line skirt. It's size 8, and we're going to cut 1 because the center front is placed on the fold. After we are done with the grain line and labeling, also we have to notch everything. Here's my center front, 1/2 notch, and then my side seam notches up and down. Should not forget the hip notch, and my hem notch is placed in here. Usually, if the hemline is too narrow, let's say 1/2 inch, we usually refrain from placing 2 notches in this corner because that corner can be cut very easily. So since the distance is 3/4 of an inch, I allowed myself to use those notches here in the corner. I did the same notches. Obviously, the notches are saying connect me with me. So wherever I have a notch, I have a mirroring notch on the other side. And then the difference is that I have an up and down notches at the center back with the zipper notches. So I'm done with my skirt, front and back. Now I need the waistband. Actually, this waistband that is already drafted is going to be used for all the skirts that require waistbands. Now, you draft simple rectangular shape. The width of this rectangular shape is 2.5 inches. We understand that this waistband is going to be folded, so the height of this waistband finished is going to be half of that, which is 1.25 inches. Okay, so the whole entire length is going to mark like this. So we're considering this line being your center back. let's look at the dress form so we can understand the structure of this for a second. So on the dress form, this is my center back. All I have to do is take this measurement from center back to the side seam and place on my draft. And then from the side seam, I am going to get half of the front, which will get me to the center front. And then the other half of the front to the side seam. And finally, from the side seam to the center back, plus 1 inch extension. So my fabrics will go on top of each other that I can put button and hole or hook and eye. From the center back, I'm going to measure 6 1/4, which is my measurement for the half of the back. And then from that, at that point, sorry, I am going to be at the side seam. Then from the side seam, I'm going to measure 6 3/4. This is 6 3/4. That will get me to the center front. And from the center front to the side seam, another 6 3/4. And from the side seam to the center back, again, 6 1/4. That will get to my other side of the center back, and 1 inch extension will be my whole length of my waistband. After I'm done with it, I will add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around, okay? And my labeling is upside down here. You can see that on the grain line, which goes on this direction. So this is the length of the fabric, which is parallel to the selvage. Why we cut it like that? Because this waistband is going to be pressured this way. And we know that the fabric doesn't stretch on the lengthwise grain. That's why we put the grain on this direction. And this is my A-line skirt waistband. And then size 8 and cut 1. We should not forget to put the mark saying fused, because this should be fused. After we do that, we need to notch our waistband. Our center back is going to be notched, definitely, and center front is going to be notched. Sometimes they would notch at the fold. You can notch if you want to, but it's an optional notch. So I have placed the skirt on the form so you roughly can see the structure. We always cut half of the garment. You see the flare that is forming in here. Actually, if you wanted to have extra flare, you could also add flare, a little bit of a flare on the side seam. If not, then it will stay just like this. And my center back is going to match with the center back. There's an opening for my zipper here, an opening at the waistband. So this will conclude my demonstration of the A-line skirt for you. I am Sofi Kachmanyan. If you liked my presentation, please push like button. You can subscribe for my videos, for future videos, or you can share it with your friends, whoever is interested in fashion. See you next time in my studio. Bye.